Hey everyone, it's Kacey Kasem, and I'm bringing you another episode of Get Real with Kacey Kasem. It's the podcast that goes behind the scenes of the fantasy football industry. And in this week's episode, I sat down with my good friend John Bosch to talk about the Fantasy Cares Eliminators that he both created and runs. We also talked about visiting amusement parks with the family, his podcast ventures, including one of the first fantasy football related podcasts I ever listened to, creating leagues, and a ton more. You can find John's podcast work with Dynasty Wall Street and Dynasty Game Night. You can follow John on Twitter at John Bosch FF. You can find me on Twitter at @DKCKasem. You can follow the pod on Twitter at GetReal_pod. You can find my writing with the Fantasy Footballers at thefantasyfootballers.com. This podcast is a proud member of the DAP network. Also, this show has a Patreon now. Patreon.com/Kacey Kasem. That's KACEYKASEM. If you guys want to go donate a couple of bucks, if you don't want to, that's totally cool too. It's your choice. But if you want to be part of the Stay Rad crew, I'll give you a shout out right here, and I would just be very appreciative. Anyway, I want to shout out the homies Russ and Rocky with Trade Addicts Pod. They're the first members of the Stay Rad crew, so I really appreciate that. You can find Get Real with Kacey Kasem's dope new ad in the Fantasy Football Black Book. Excited to get my hands on my copy soon. Joe Pisapia is an upcoming guest on the podcast, so look forward to that as well. Please make sure to rate and review the podcast. And now here's my conversation with John Bosch. Now, to get to the good part. Let's start off, because I always ask this question that everybody already knows is coming, but how did you start off playing fantasy football in the first place?
So I started playing fantasy football when I was in high school, which was a long time ago. A long time ago. I had actually transferred high schools. I switched high school after my sophomore year, and I was no longer in school with my literal lifelong BFF, still to this day, my BFF. And you know, that was tough because like we had literally spent like every day of our lives together growing up. But luckily he actually asked me over the summer if I wanted to join a fantasy football team with him. He had been co-managing with another one of our friends. Somebody left the league that they were in, and it had only, I think they were in like year 3 or 4. It was just a regular redraft league, and he wanted to take over his own team. Like they split then. So they wanted to do their own teams, but he asked me if I wanted to manage with him. And I was like, sure. Like this sounds fun. You know, I like gambling. Yeah, I'm 16. I like gambling. It's what we do. I mean, you know, we had gambled over with baseball cards growing up, like kids do. And, you know, that was fun. So this was a way to bring some of that. I liked watching the NFL at that point. I was a big time Bengals fan, and I enjoyed watching the Bengals on Sunday, and then I would watch the other games. I was hooked pretty immediately. And it's been awesome. We still co-manage that same team in that same league. And that was probably 1990. I graduated in 99. So that was probably 1997, I want to say. So it's been a while. In that league, I think since the time I've joined, we've probably only replaced like 3 or 4 people. It's a bunch of people so like my friend co-managed with our other friend, and it's like a group of a few of our friends now, and then the older brothers of several of them are older cousins. That basically all went to high school together, and it's fun. I mean, we see each other once a year. It's a live draft. We get together, hang out, have a lot of fun, and enjoy it. It's still my my original league, and we still have a blast with it. It's probably the only redraft league that I'm like, yes, I can't wait for that one. And it's mostly because of the live draft and getting to co-manage with my friend. I mean, like it keeps us chatting. It brings us together. We have other things that bring us together too, but like we talk a lot about fantasy football.
I bet. Is that the only team that you co-manage, or do you co-manage more than that one?
Oh, I co-manage with a lot of people. I enjoy the experience of co-managing. I hate doing waivers. So if I can find somebody else to split that burden, that's awesome. But mostly I think it's actually a really good way to sharpen myself. And I enjoy the discussion. So I have a team with Kevin Cotillo. Not a shock. One of my podcast hosts. I have a team with Matt Price. Not a shock. One of my podcast co-hosts. I have a team with Matt Price and Russ Fisher. Again, not a shock. I have a team with Travis May. He and I have, been pretty friendly for years, and it's a Devi squad. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to go into a heavy Debbie league, I can't do that on my own. Definitely going to need somebody to team up with. I'm going to ask Travis, who I think is one of the top Debbie people out there. So we have a lot of fun doing that. God, I'm probably missing some. I'm going to scan my leagues here real quick just to make sure I'm not leaving anybody out. Because I enjoy the experience of co-managing. I think it's fun, and for me, fantasy football is about being about fun. So, right. Actually, Matt and we have several teams together. I think I got everybody without forgetting anybody. So that's good. That's good. Should always remember all the names of all your co-managers, right? That's probably important.
That's probably why I don't co-manage. I can't even keep track of who I have on any of my leagues, let alone who's in my leagues and all that jazz.
It's really good. It's because even when you're like, if you're not thinking about a team, they might be thinking about it, and they'll just shoot you a text message, and then all of a sudden you have a little discussion about the team, which is fantastic. Because there's a lot of my teams that they're in a position where I don't pay a lot of attention to them. They're not bad teams. They're not great teams. Some of them, they're not teams. Not like I'm not leaving the league or anything. I like the leagues and everything, but I don't look at them on a regular basis. So when I have a co-manager that occasionally will hit up one of these teams, then I get a message and then I look at the team. So it's I think it ends up being really, really helpful. You definitely have to be comfortable with the other person. I don't co-manage with anybody that I wouldn't trust to completely run the team by themselves. I would give them money to run a team for me. That's how much I trust them. I don't want, it's never I have to check with the other person situation to make sure you get approval. Like there's none of that. Like one of us can pull the trigger at any time about anything if we have to. Usually we still discuss things, but sometimes that trade offer comes in and you just want to smash it. And you don't want to sit around until it gets withdrawn. So,
yeah, that's what I would think I'd have issues with, is I'm too much of a person that's like controlling, and I'd want to take over. I've only been on the opposite side where I've been dealing with people that are co-managing a team together, and it's always, well, I need to check with this person first, and then I'll get back to you. And I'm like, no, I want to trade now. So yeah, I get that. And you were also talking about live drafts too. For anybody that hasn't done a live draft before, because I was talking to Scott about this as well, because he does, and I just want to know, what would you tell these people that haven't done live drafts to kind of like bring them over to the, the good side?
Set one up.
Set one up.
Find a group. Even if you can't like get together live over the past few years, I've done some of my auctions for redraft leagues, like with a Google Meet, like going, which even that is, it's not the same as live, but it's better than, just everybody in the Yahoo chat room and nobody's like talking. Everybody's just watching their bids. When you can run a Google Meet along with it, you get a little bit of that experience of a live one. When you get a real live one, oh my gosh. It's, to me, I like that day alone in every league that I have where it's a live draft or auction, that day alone is worth whatever the price is of the league. It's so much fun. I look forward to them every day or every year. And now I have a lot of them. So I as I've added leagues, I've tried to make more and more and more of them be live, because it just makes the whole league so much more fun. Everybody has fun. The one when I run them, which I do almost all of them that I do live, except for I think one, which is my original one. But everybody brings, basically we've kind of turned it into like a potluck. Everybody brings something. Bring some food, bring some beverages, bring stuff to share with everybody, and then we're just going to sit around, eat, drink, and auction. It's fun.
Live drafts are so much fun, and you get to see a bunch of people you haven't seen in a long time. And in my case, we all meet up, and that's always fun. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that time of the year. You're in a ton of leagues. You are known for, having your hands in so many different rules, and you come up with so many like things that nobody else would ever think of. You can see kind of Bosch's imprint on leagues. When did it take off from you just playing this, with your friend to
casually to being crazy,
casually to how you are now? What was that progression like?
How I am now.
How you are now.
This is crystal clear for me. The night that the Bengals blew the fucking just blew the playoff game because they're stupid. Because they're stupid idiots. I'm pretty sure it was Vontez Perfect, and I can't remember who the other one was. Everybody will probably remember this. They literally gave away a game with personal fouls, like 15-yard penalty, 15-yard penalty. All of a sudden, Pittsburgh is in field goal range. Pittsburgh makes the kick. Cincinnati loses the game. First round exit of the playoffs, which it happened over and over and over and over. And I was just, I did not want him on the team. Like he should have been gone from the team forever. And everybody's like, no, he's a good player. And I'm like, no, he cost them. He cost them more than yes, he's great when he's great. But when he's bad, he's so bad that he costs them. And then when it happened in the playoffs, I was just like, that's it. I'm done. Literally that night was the night that I wrote up my bylaws for the first type of league that was my creative type league. I had always run a redraft league that had actually, the first redraft league I ever ran was dual superflex. I didn't realize that was like crazy. But I love quarterbacks. So yes. Like I wanted to have a quarterback heavy league. But even that wasn't like crazy me. So it was the night that the Bengals blew it. And I said, I'm done. I'm just going further into fantasy football. So at that point, then I wrote up bylaws and I looked for people who I could send them to try and like talk about this. And this was for what I called my Empire League, still called that. But it's a makeup of 6 different formats of fantasy football in one league. So it's a group of people. We all compete against each other in 6 different formats, and we get points based on how we finish in each format every year. So there's dynasty, there's salary cap, there's auction, there's redraft, there's DFS, and there's playoff fantasy. Those are like the 6 pillars that make up the Empire. And that was the first time I ever wrote up some crazy Excel sheet of bylaws. And so when I was looking for people that I could be like, okay, I need to like talk to people about this. I need to start searching, find out like what I want to do here. Like with this is the league I want to have. Yeah. I need to talk to people. And of course, then I started searching like dynasty leagues that, like different dynasty leagues, stuff like that. And you had Ryan on here, the godfather of Keep Dynasty Weird. And I came across his article series and I was like, oh my God, this is my person. Yes. And then I found Scott, like, commissioner extraordinaire. And I'm like, oh my God, like that. So I reached out to them and was like, hey, I've got some league. Like at that point, neither of them knew anything who I was, which is completely fine. I'm just some rando reaching out to them saying, hey, I've got this league that I wrote up these rules for. Like, would you mind looking this over and like telling me what you think about it and stuff? And like Scott replied, I think they both replied pretty quickly. Knowing them now, I'm not surprised because they eat that shit up. Like, oh my God, bylaws for some weird league. Like, yes, I'm definitely, and I do too. Like when people send me stuff bylaws, I'm like, yes, I'm definitely going to read this. Unless it's during eliminator time, then I'm pretty zeroed in. But so they reached out and like that was the beginning of my relationship with Scott and Ryan. Like, so, and from there, obviously, it went a little insane. We could even say,
which is a great transition to what I was going to ask you about, because I brought this up earlier on Twitter. Fantasy Insanity, to me, that is one of the creative podcasts to come out of the fantasy football world, like one of the OG, right, podcasts to come out of the fantasy football world. And I remember one of the first podcasts, which is
hilarious that I listened to me.
Yeah, your podcast so funny, was. Kacey. I'm not even kidding. It was definitely. So I'm going back today and I'm looking and I'm seeing that the check mark. You listen to this episode. You listen to this episode, and so on and so forth. Why and what made you decide that this is what I want to do?
Because nobody else is doing it. So
boom.
I wanted to hear about other leagues that were crazy, that were insane. Mm-hmm. I wanted to hear about insane leagues. Obviously, my first 2 guests, I think, like I would not have started the podcast probably if Ryan and Scott didn't agree to come on and talk about kitchen sink and capitalist pigs. Yeah. When I reached out to Scott, Scott can spot somebody that's got the same defect we'll call it. No, whatever it is that makes us think up these weird ideas. So he started talking to me about capitalist pigs. Ryan started talking to me about kitchen sink. Like, I think they both could see that, like, oh, he'll probably appreciate these. So we started they told me about them. And then I was like, wait, like, I want to hear more about these types of stories, these types of leagues, these things that are insane in fantasy football. That's beyond just this, redraft league. Like, I wanted to hear more about that. There wasn't anything out there. So I was like, all right, that's fine. I'll just do it. Will you guys come on and talk to me about your crazy leagues? And of course they already had a pretty nice platform. So having them on, people listened, and then anybody else that had crazy leagues, they reached out, and I was able to, people would tell me, hey, this person runs this league that does this and this. And I'm like, okay, I'll just, I want to talk to everybody about every single league. And then it did grow a little bit beyond just league talk, because we do a lot of other things in our little fantasy football world that are are a little bit more extreme than what people think of when you say, oh, you play fantasy football? Oh, that's nice. You get the magazine, you go to your draft. Yeah, you pick a team. Oh, that's fine. Like, we're a little bit more insane. So it grew a little bit beyond just leagues. But I mean, that was the big part of it, was just the leagues, and I wanted to hear more about them. So that's why I did it. And I had some great people on there. I mean, great people came on, and I enjoyed sharing the stories with people. Like Matt Harmon came on, and he talked about, his journey across the country to join NFL Network and stuff. And like, that's insane, right? Like,
it's crazy.
That wasn't what he was expecting to do with his life. So, I mean, that wasn't a league thing, but that was obviously, that's where it kind of grew to, was getting to talk to people about doing stuff like that. That it just, if you tell that story before it happens, people will be like, no, that's never going to happen.
Right.
But after the fact, it ends up being pretty cool.
It is cool. And the idea of so fresh, especially for somebody like me who had just done redraft and boring settings, standard and this, that, the other. And
there's nothing wrong with that, Kacey. And there's nothing wrong.
There really isn't. But
not that there's anything wrong with that.
Okay. Boring may be the incorrect. So remember, I don't watch
I know
TV shows.
That's why I said it under my breath. So.
I know. I see this. One day I'm going to watch all of the
audience
shows.
will get that Seinfeld reference, and you just won't.
And they'll be like, quit hosting the show, Kacey. Somebody else is going to have to do it. And John dropped the mic on me right now.
I'll stick to Good Place references the rest of the night.
Thank you. There's a show I know. So anyway, so it was really cool to be able to see that. So when you were putting that out, had you ever done any sort of podcasting prior to your own podcast?
Nope. Not even a little bit. I had listened to a couple. I think at that point I was listening to, because that I had made the determination, like, that I was going to get into dynasty football, because I thought it sounded more interesting. I had already run, actually, I think I was running like what I thought was a dynasty league. It clearly wasn't. It was a salary cap league. I know that now. I was wrong back then. I had no idea what the difference was.
I don't think most people did.
I knew I liked that aspect of it more, having like an investment beyond just a single year and having to balance things for current and future assets. Like, to me, that's a lot of fun. So I knew I was going to take the plunge into that. So I had started listening to, I think the only ones I listened to originally were DLF, Dynasty Nerds. I think Fake Goods might have been around at that time. I mean, there was not the amount of options that there are now.
Not at all. 0%.
I think that was pretty much it. Dynasty, Travis and Justin might have been doing Dynasty Life back then. Can't remember if that was when I first started or if they started that for a little while after. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there wasn't the amount of options there are now. So, and that wasn't even that long ago. That was like 2017.
I know. Something. It's crazy. It's crazy how this continues to grow. And it's really cool that people are, going in there and actually doing what you did and learning how to do it as you go, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you can't stop hearing my voice. Unfortunately, it's everywhere.
No, you always know it's going to be a good podcast when you hear John Bosch is going to be on it. Oh,
Kacey took butter up your guest 101. All right.
Yeah, I did. Well, see, the only way I'm going to get you to come back, right?
That is
nice.
not true. You know that's not true.
Secrets, guys. That's the only way I have to be nice to John or else. No. So when you first started podcasting, then were you worried that whatever you were putting out wasn't going to be received? Like,
oh God, yeah.
At all?
I was nervous. Are you kidding? I had never prepared so much. I prepared for my first podcast with Ryan because obviously, I'm like, oh my God, this is Ryan McDowell. He's taking time off of his day to talk to me over a computer about his kitchen sink leagues. Kacey, I kid you not when I say I had poster board things up behind my computer with 15-point font and my notes all printed and everything. I was ready. I had researched. But I had pages.
Yeah.
I had pages and pages. But I wanted to post them up so that I wasn't constantly looking down, but I could look right behind and I was set and ready. And then I quickly learned that wasn't the way to do it. Yeah. And Ryan was great. I mean, Ryan was already polished and it made it so much easier. I still researched for the upcoming shows, so I was ready, but I did not go to that over prepped length because the conversation was easy with Ryan. And I'm somebody who can talk about fantasy football for whatever amount of time you want to fill. So it's a conversation that I have all day, every day in my head on Twitter with people in real life that I play fantasy football with. So it ended up being just a conversation with me and him about this league. And it flowed way better than if I would have tried to read questions off and stuff like that. So yeah, I was nervous as hell. And then, I was like, I'm going to put this out. I wonder if anybody's going to listen, why would anybody care about these? This is basically just me wanting to talk to people about these leagues. I think some people might find it interesting. If people ended up finding it interesting, which is awesome. It's so cool. And every once in a while now somebody will mention hey, I just listened to a Fantasy Insanity episode. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's still, you can still find that somewhere.
Yeah.
For something.
I was on Stitcher earlier and I was like,
I get a lot of I think when people search for salary cap fantasy football, that's the one that I get more than anything. And I think it was Mike Margosian on that one. And we talked about salary cap fantasy football. And it's very hard to talk salary cap fantasy football. So I understand why somebody's finding something from 4 years ago, because it's not like a discussion that you can have every single week about it. It's just it's a different kind of setup. But every once in a while I'll get people that they'll say, hey, I just listened to your salary cap episode. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's it's funny to me. I need to go back and listen to it because
somebody needs to do somebody needs to re-listen to all the episodes and do a podcast recapping the podcast.
Nobody needs to do that.
I'm just saying if anybody has any free time on their hands, there you go.
But if anybody is interested in this, what we've now wasted, however long we've wasted talking about this podcast, Fantasy Insanity.
Well,
it was fun. It was
Fantasy Insanity. I mean, so we were talking about how it was one of the first podcasts that really did this kind of stuff. And so I know you were talking about how you got these guests to come on and talk, but being at a time where podcasting was relatively new, I mean, it still is, but really relatively new. How did you spread the word on it? Because it's easy to do it now. I don't think it's as easy back then.
How did I spread the word to get people to come on, or how did I get?
How about to get people interested in it? To listen to it in the first place?
I tweeted about it. I made sure that I tagged the people that I had on. And I can, so I can remember thinking, oh my God, that person's got thousands of followers. I was fairly new to Twitter at this point too. I didn't realize like one tweet is seen by like 10 people and then it's gone in a second. Nobody else sees it, unless some like a small percentage of tweets gain traction and like are seen over and over and over. I know that now because I've been on Twitter for a while, and you can see when you hit on a tweet versus just, it's something that scrolls by and
right.
It's gone in a flash. So, I mean, it's still hard today. I believe back then I was probably in a group also where we kind of promoted each other's shows. I wasn't the only one starting something at that point. So I mean, I think Travis and Justin were in it because I'm pretty sure they were in it. Like Tyler, for DHH. Yeah. And like when we would put out new shows, we would support each other, which is awesome. Like we had our little group where, hey, here's my show for this week. Like if you can share it, that'd be awesome. So we would. I mean, and that works. I mean, you've got to network with people. It was also helpful that I had some people with big megaphones. And now, I mean, like, God, if I had Ryan or Scott on a podcast now, like their followings now are just huge compared to even then what they were. But even then I was like, my God, these people just have huge followings. Like, this will get it out to so many more people. I mean, nobody's going to, I have a couple hundred followers or whatever it was back then, like, and probably half bots. So I'm not going to get it anywhere. So, I mean, I relied on others, but I do believe that in this little fantasy football bubble that we do, if you do something that is unique and different and good, something that people like, it will be found. I mean, there are a lot of people who think, oh, I do this great thing and, I'm really good at it. Nobody's ever found me for it. That means you're probably doing something that everybody else is doing. You're not doing something that's different. You're doing something. You might be doing it really well, but if it's not separated from the other 3,000 people that are doing the exact same thing, like it doesn't get traction. So if you do something very, very, very well, like to stand out, or you do something different, and you approach something from a different way. And I think you've had everybody say that to you.
It's very true.
it is. You have to have a different spin. And that's what mine was nobody was talking about, the insanity of the fantasy leagues that we play in. Why would anybody do an entire show talking about a superpowers league or something like that?
You know what?
Craziness. But
I think I did listen to part of that earlier today. Now that you said this,
I mean, nobody was doing it. So I did it, and it did. It made me enough connections like that. I literally had never planned to do anything else beyond that. And I still don't. I mean, like I'm not trying to break into the fantasy football industry. I do realize I am like a small little tiny, like pin in a cog of it. But I could slip out and the machine will roll just fine. So I'm not an important part of it, but I understand them in it a little bit at this point. Was never expected. I just wanted to talk about fantasy leagues. And it did kind of, as I got more involved, because it's kind of addicting to get involved. And then I started doing more things. Fantasy Insanity led to the Fantasy Insanity Eliminators, which that was a game changer. So at that point, then I could no longer deny, okay, now I'm really in this.
So how did you find out about fantasy Twitter in the first place? Because a lot of that story, a lot of the stories are Twitter. So how did you find that?
Oh, so this is actually really fun. I was not a social media person. I didn't have a smartphone, Casey, when I first joined Twitter.
Me
which
either.
Again, I think was like 2016. I don't know. I can check. When I joined Twitter, I joined it on my laptop. And that was how
2015 is when
August 2015. Okay, so it wasn't that. I guess it was, but August 2015. What are you doing in August? You're doing redraft leagues.
Yes,
of course. Fantasy football is what got me to join Twitter, and I think I didn't want to miss out on a guy. I had heard it August 2015. If you go back and you look at preseason injuries, you're going to find Jordy Nelson torn ACL just days before I joined Twitter, and I was like, oh shit. Like if I was at a draft, I've got my draft coming up. I'm going to have my computer there, my laptop. I'm going to connect to my commissioner's Wi-Fi. But if Jordy Nelson tears an ACL, not Jordy Nelson, but because he had already done it. Yeah. If somebody else tears an ACL in a preseason game, because we're drafting on a Saturday night, I want to know like right away.
Right now.
I don't want to be the person that's drafting Jordy Nelson a minute after he tore his ACL. So that was why I joined Twitter, fantasy football. I didn't want to make it like, that's how serious me and my co-manager took, and still take this redraft league. Like, we like winning it. It's fun. We want to beat these people that we've known forever. So that's why I joined Twitter. Was because I didn't want to have a Jordy Nelson torn ACL on a redraft squad.
Hey, you know what? That's a great answer. I get like genuinely when people say they created a Twitter account for fantasy football, I'm like, wow. Every time I ask somebody that, because mine says I joined in 2008. So I wasn't playing fantasy football in 2008. So there's that. So going back to networking as well, because Twitter's an important part of networking. Exactly how important is it to make sure that, you know, you're not being a dick on Twitter when it comes to networking?
So I'm usually pretty nice on Twitter.
Yeah.
Usually you can really set me off. And when you do, I don't care about the reaction to how I react. Because I'm not somebody who is looking for like this to be my career. Right. So I don't feel like I have to be polite. And I think some people expect me to be polite and think they'll get away with being a complete and total jerk. But I try not to have those interactions because that's not that fun. I mean, it's a little fun to watch somebody that's a jackass get completely fried for a day. But how important is networking and not being a jerk? Don't be a jerk. It's so easy to not be a jerk. Like, you have to make effort. I'm a very lazy person. I don't want to make an effort to be a jerk to somebody. So I try not to be a jerk. Like or I don't have to try to not be a jerk, I should say, because to be a jerk, you have to actually put effort in. I'm not doing that. Like, and I mean, I've always believed I don't tweet at players. That should be a principle. Like, if you at a player and you have any type of previous tweet regarding anything about fantasy football, Twitter should just auto block that tweet. Like, it should just not send. It's going to your drafts. It's going to your drafts. Maybe you can send it later, and then you go try and send it later. Still not able to, like, that'd be an algorithm that'd be awesome. Just
that would be
don't be jerks to players. I have never understood anybody that relies on other people to make decisions for them for their fantasy football team, despite the fact that I do make decisions for other people now. I still don't get it. So I have never understood blaming somebody else. Like, to me, that's always been funny. Yeah. Like when you told me to pick this person and I did, and now they got hurt and it's your fault. And I'm like, you still see it. You still see this. And
my gosh,
how do people still do this? You know that you're going to be made fun of for doing this. Like, it's who
I don't know. It would be
your
nice
own decisions. Like, I play this game because I think I'm good at it and I have fun. Yeah, I don't want to win because I think somebody else is controlling my decisions. Like, if I'm going to blame them for my losses, I have to give them credit for my wins. You don't see a lot of that. I mean, you do see some of it. Like, hey, you gave me a great sleeper. Hey, your strategy that you talked about was awesome. You do see that, and that's awesome when you see like a positive reinforcement of that. But you definitely see the negative too. And I don't get that mentality. I love the people that I talk to about fantasy football. Oh yeah, I respect the hell out of them. When it comes down to me making a decision, I don't care what any of them think. I'm making the decision I want. I mean, I'm an arrogant jerk, whatever. Like, no, I'm going to make the decision that I want to make because that's what's going to make me happy. And in the long run, it's about what I want because it's my team. So I don't understand people getting mad at that kind of stuff. And networking, I mean, it's just kind of, if you get on Twitter, on fantasy Twitter, luckily it's one of the better, from what I hear, Twitters. I mean, like, you've seen glimpses of political Twitter in the past few years. Like, holy crap, freaking nightmare. Even though it's somewhat entertaining again, just to watch from afar. I don't want to be involved in it. Nah. But like our little fantasy Twitter bubble, it ends up being so many people are cool. So if you just start talking to people, you might not get a reaction right away. But if you're interacting with them, they see your name for the most part. They will, if they see you over and over, and you're not being a jerk, then you'll start getting an interaction back and forth. You might not get it when you have an egg on your profile. Like, people aren't dumb.
Yeah.
They're not even seeing that. Most people have that filtered out. Do not see tweets from people without a profile pic. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're genuine and you're participating in the conversation and furthering a fantasy football conversation, that's why we're on Twitter. People love that. We are all degenerates who think about fantasy football way more than we should, way more than the majority of humans do.
Mm-hmm.
We go to conventions to talk about it, which, just let's be honest, like, going to a convention to talk about something, that's a stigma. I'm not saying I'm going, like, we're going, we're gonna, it's gonna be fun. But like, there's definitely, like, come on, you're not that cool. You're going to talk about fantasy football. Like,
Right.
come on, so we are to the level of insanity that we talk about fantasy football on Twitter. So it's really not hard to network if you just start talking to some people, do things that get you in the eliminators and in SFB, like those things. The league chats for these eliminators going on right now, I mean, I've already had so many people tell me, like, oh my God, like, I never thought I'd have this conversation with this person. And like, the person that they're having this conversation with is like getting they're getting stuff out of it too. Like, they're just as, they want to talk about fantasy football just as much as you do. Like, they're happy to talk about it. We all have that in us, that we just want to sit there and talk about fantasy football.
So since you've brought up the eliminators a few times, and I want to get to that. I'm going to get to it, right?
You can leave that to the end, because it's probably a longer story.
No, it's okay, because I want to get to it right now. Maybe we'll tease a little, and then we'll do a little more. We'll see. People, I know why people are listening to this, because John Bosch does Fantasy Care Eliminators. And, well, you talked about Fantasy Insanity, springboarding that into action. How exactly did the idea come about to do that?
So the first year I did Fantasy Insanity, I wanted to do like a listener league. Mm-hmm. But everybody does listener leagues, and come on, this was Fantasy Insanity. Like, I'm not doing a regular 12-team listener league redraft. I'm not doing that. Hell no, I'm not. That's not me. Like, that would not have fit the show. Of course, we all love my fantasy league, so I was basically looking around in my fantasy league for things that I could do that were different, and I came across the setting that said eliminate the lowest scoring team each week. And I was like, oh, that's fun. That's fun. Plus, that's a best ball. Nobody has to really invest a lot of time in it. Right. You just get to have a fun draft. So I ended up setting up, the first one was actually like a listener league, Fantasy Insanity Eliminator, and it had some guests from the show come back. So it was like half guests and then like half fans. So we got to have a little there was, interaction similar to what you get in SFB, because obviously I'd already talked to Scott about SFB and the aspects of that. And that was the first one. Then like the summer, that was, so whatever year that was. Then the summer after that, I remember being in Florida and getting a text from Scott saying, hey, I'm looking to expand Fantasy Cares. Like, I already talked to him about like, what can I do to like help you with this? Cause this is awesome what you do with this. And he's like, so he messaged and he's like, do you have any ideas on things that we could do to raise more money? And I was like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. And I told him about the Eliminator League that I ran. And I said, I think we can do it where if we have, one person that people want to play that plays for free, the celebrity, air quoted celebrity, 16 people will pay to play against them. And I said, I wanted to do 10 of them in year one. That was my goal. I wanted to do 10 leagues, raise $1,000 for the Toys for Tots drive. We ended up doing 30 leagues the first year. That was awesome. I mean, and I was able to get, like a lot of people joined it that I wouldn't have thought even at that time even knew who I was, but because it was something that was going to benefit the Toys for Tots drive that Scott had set up, people kind of knew about that. That was already established. It wasn't nearly as big as it is now. So it was kind of at the beginning of that. So it kind of paired on with that, which was great. And it just, it's kind of blown up from there. It grew a little bit the next year and then a little bit. And then last year it went crazy. And this year, I mean, it's just, I can't even describe what's happened this year. It's awesome. I don't even know how to say it. But like at this point now, there's people reaching out to me that want to host them. And that's awesome. You know, yes, host one, start a group, get it ready. We'll get you hosted. Scott built a fantastic website for it this year. He had the website for signups last year, but he did a lot. I can't even describe to everybody because I can't do it justice what he did on the back end of this process. I was running it off of a Google sheet because I was only doing 30 of them the first time. Like that was easy. You know, I could keep track of that. There's 150 of them this year.
Wow.
So, and we did that in 9 days. 9 days.
Wow.
That's I can't believe how fast they filled.
Yeah.
The support from people, and I took away didn't take away monetary prizes, but I made it so there's no monetary prizes. It's all donations this year. There was a little part of me that was kind of nervous that was going to be something that people would react poorly to. There was also part of me that was hoping like, okay, this might go the other way and people will actually just embrace this as part of like the kickoff to SFB. Because it's been for so I did 1 year where it was fantasy, insanity, and eliminators. The next year, like I talked to Scott, I was like, I got permission before I changed it to Fantasy Cares because that's his baby.
Yeah.
But I was like, Scott, like, can I rebrand this to Fantasy Cares Eliminators? He gave the blessing on that. And that's when, I mean, it really did start to blow up even more from that. And then this past year, this current year, I thought it was established enough to make the move completely to being, you know, it's just full donations. And people definitely embraced it. I don't know. I definitely couldn't have done that 3 or 4 years ago. It wasn't established. I would have looked like a crazy person. Hey, donate money, play in a league against somebody. You're not going to win any prize. Like there's nothing, you're not getting anything back, but just give money. Just give money for it. But I mean, I've been able to participate with Scott in the toy shopping and stuff for a few years now, which is awesome. And now, I mean, part of it even goes to a food bank around me. So I think I was able to give it the reputation that it has now, to the point where, you know, it was able to go to donation only, which is, I was nervous about it. I thought about doing it last year and I didn't pull the trigger on it last year because I wasn't sure if it was there or not. I think it would have been. I think it would have been. The response last year was like, it took off. It took off last year. And I think I could have done it last year. But I didn't. And this year I am so glad that I did, because I don't have to track somebody down for a freaking PayPal fee anymore. Like if they,
my gosh,
the amount of times that I got a 59-cent charge and I'm like, and like the first year I just paid a bunch of them. And then I'm like, well, that cost me a lot of money. I probably shouldn't do that. So then I had to track people down. They couldn't send it via friends and family or wouldn't send it Venmo. And it was, that nightmare is over. Now, if it gets a little bit short, I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. You made a donation. And honestly, so many people have been overly generous, which is just awesome. I mean, there have been people that have donated this year that like, hey, I couldn't play in them this year because they all filled up and I was on vacation, but I wanted to still pitch in, and they've sent a donation in. And I'm like, oh, that's just like, that's so cool. And of course I'm like, keep your eyes out. There've already been like 2 or 3 since the signups closed. Yeah. I've told people, if you get a group of 17 people, give us the names. Boom. Give us the names. And by us, I mean me, Alan Hepworth, Russ Fisher, Matt Price, and Bob Gilchrist. I have to give them credit. They have done so much work for me as well. I can never repay them. But give us the names of 17. Give us names and emails. Put it on a Google sheet. Send it to me. We'll get you set up with a league still. Like, even though the signups are over, I think we've created like 3 leagues even since then, just from people who they just want to play. They just want to play. Yeah. They want to donate. They want to play. People enjoy the drafts. They enjoy the strategy in this league. It's crazy, Kacey. There's freaking like ADP for this stuff now. Like, awesome. Oh my God. Like, I created a league that has like, that's like I mean,
So
I remember when like there was SFB ADP and like,
Yeah.
like, oh my God, like that's so cool. There's ADP for one league. And like, oh my God, there's ADP for these fantasy cares eliminators. Like, that's so weird. That's
it's so
so
cool
weird.
though. It's so
It
cool
is.
that people
It's
are
so
so
cool.
they're like, this is
Yeah.
my and people have strategies and people have, you know, I'm
People
in
have
this
different
many.
strategies. Like they try,
Yes.
like, okay, I'm going to try this strategy out in this one, and I'm going to try this strategy out in this one. And it's the,
Yeah.
which, you know, I love strategy. Like I could care less about any of the players except Kyle Pitts. I could care less about any of the players in the National Football League. Good for all of them. I'm rooting for all of them, not rooting against any of them except Vontaze Burfict. Maybe Tyreek Hill occasionally. You know, I don't, but overall, I don't really care about the players. I don't know them. They don't know
Right.
me. But I love the strategy of fantasy football. So for the fantasy eliminators to command so many different strategies, it's just, it's a dream come true. It's so much fun to watch.
And with the different, you know, eliminators that you have, with the different chats, they're all for the most part, the ones that I get in are always pop in. The people
Oh,
that are, you know, the celebrities are like involved in it. So how cool is it to see that happen as well with something that you created?
oh my God, Casey, again, this is Scott's this is Scott's influence on me. I mean, I've had so many conversations with him where one of the things he loves about SFB is how it connects, you know, the top level analysts, the people like me who are I'm not necessarily a fan, but I'm not an analyst, but like there's an in between, which is me. And then fans, like people that are just fans of fantasy football and fans of the league and stuff like that. And it does. It connects us in a way that we wouldn't be connected. I'm never going to be like, I mean, I am now, but when I first started SFP, I was never going to be. It's so weird to say. Like when I started doing this, I'm never going to play in a league with Scott Fish. Oh well, actually, okay. So I play in a few leagues with him. Whatever. Like you know, like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
it's still to me. Even when I get in when I'm in a league chat in SFP with somebody that I don't play in a league with or something like that. Like it's cool. It is cool. It's somebody I listen to. I don't care if people listen to me. I still listen to other people too. So it's still cool to have a conversation and a chat with people about fantasy football. And it's cool to have, you know, I don't even like the word fans. I don't, and I think it makes Scott uncomfortable sometimes too, to have like listing people as analysts and fans. Cause in the long run, we all end up just being like different levels of degeneracy or it's the chats for SFB really do bring people together. And over the last couple of years, that's really happened with the eliminator chats too. So I can't tell you what it means to me when one of the celebrities actually is like interactive, and there's so many of them are. I mean, there's literally a couple of chats from the 2020 leagues that are still active.
Wow.
Even while the 2021 leagues have been formed and are ongoing, there's still a couple of 2021s that still pop up in the last couple of weeks. And they've been like they still pop into talk about fantasy football. And I mean, some of these leagues, they talk about everything. It's just, I mean, it's a conversation that people have formed a bond. Some of the eliminator leagues kind of stay together. And that's so cool. A special shout out to the Mike Beers and the Denny Carter OG one. I mean, their league, it's tight. Like Mike, you know, stepped back a little bit from the fantasy industry and stuff like that. Like he wanted to, but he even said like in his chat, like, oh, I'm not leaving. No, I'm not leaving the eliminator. Like, no. Like that, this is still a thing. And like this group, like the group it's a tight group and they talk a lot about the strategy. It's so cool. That's one of the chats. I don't follow all of them. I do try to check in on that one just to scroll and be like, okay, what in the world are they talking about now? Because these are all smart people.
Right.
Beers to me is one of the. I hope that he doesn't go. I hope he doesn't stay away for long. Like,
right.
I like his analysis. I like the way he looks at things and he processes things. I respect the hell out of his opinion. So like I love sneaking into his chat and seeing what he's talking about and seeing what people are talking about with him. Because obviously the people that are in there with him like they're there for that conversation because they respect how he thinks and stuff. So it's a really neat interaction. But there are so many of the chats that, I mean, they go nonstop right now. And it'll die down a little bit after the drafts. I mean, it's kind of natural. They all tend to die down a little bit as SFB starts. People shift over to there. My draft pick slot chat, my division chat. I'm gonna, maybe you're in a chat with people that that are just strategizing about SFB. Like people switch over to those chats. But during the season, a lot of them still end up popping up. They always pop up when the celebrity loses. Like that's almost a given. If you're the celebrity of a league and you go out, there's going to be you're gonna get a message in the chat. Good natured, of course.
Yeah, of course.
But like those weeks don't slip by without that chat at least being mentioned. And then again, like week 15 and 16, as it's getting down to the end, they kind of start to get a little bit more active again. Because people start to look at, they're like, oh, I forgot about that league. I'm going to go check it out and see who's leading. And as people start seeing then who's about to win, they get a little more active again in the last couple of weeks. Some of them stay active. Literally, some of them. Michael Lou. Oh, geez, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right.
That's right.
I think it's Lou. I mean, his chats, they talk fantasy football constantly. Like they talk so much fantasy football. It's awesome. And like he just gets in there and talks with them. They can ask any question, he answers it. It's so cool. Like just certain chats stay active year round. I can't tell you if that's going to happen for the league that you signed up for, but sometimes and sometimes it's the group. I mean, sometimes the celebrity feels really comfortable just interacting with the group because it's been I do watch for people that aren't enjoying themselves correctly. I keep an eye out for that. There's always people in the chats that will definitely tell me if that's the case. It's led to some uncomfortable situations in the past, but it's real easy for me to just remove somebody because I don't really care. in the long run, it's about fun. So usually I would say like 99.99% of the time, people are having fun in the chat. If anybody ever isn't, they're just gone. So usually it's a pretty comfortable place for people to sit there and talk about fantasy football and then inevitably about other things, vacations, grilling meat, beer, ciders, whatever.
Ciders. All right. Might have to go in mine and start talking about some ciders. I need some recommendations. So also, is there somebody that hasn't been a quote unquote celebrity that, hasn't been a part yet that you think would be a cool person to be a celebrity?
Yes, there are lots, but I won't call anybody out because for the same reason when I asked the question at the end of every year, okay, so who would you like me to get? Do not, and I even say like, do not at them. Do not at them because like, I don't want that press. Don't at somebody and say, hey, why don't you have a celebrity eliminator that I can play in against you? I don't want, that's like, no, don't do that. Like, that's just, I don't know. To me, it's cringy.
Cringy. Yeah, that's the word I was
like, say. That's the word, the word's overused, but like, don't do that. It puts me in a, like, it's awkward for me. It's awkward for the person that you added. The only person it's not awkward for is you because you think it's appropriate. Like it's not. But I do ask, like, who do you want to see in this? And there are definitely some names that I do hope to eventually get them in. I'm not going to say anybody because I'm not going to call anybody out. Because if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I think we will. I think it's going to grow a little bit more. And I think some of those names that people are always looking for, I think they will be in eventually. Hopefully, maybe not. I mean, I do this at the same time of year, basically. It's always early June, late May in this case, because we got a nice head start on it, which is awesome. I get to get it done before I go on a vacation. But it's always done at the same time of year, basically. So that person might just be really busy at this time of year, and they don't have the time, which is fine. Like that doesn't bother me. I've never really asked somebody and had just a flat out no. Why would you even ask? Like I've never had a rude. There have been some people who have been like, nah, I don't have the time to do it right now. Like I appreciate what you're doing, but no, it doesn't fit. And like, that's fine. That's fine for me. That doesn't bother me at all.
So being in control.
Did you think I was going to give a name there?
No, I didn't. No, I thought maybe you would pick somebody out of a hat that is just some random person that probably doesn't know anything about fantasy football. You're like, but
there was, I won't say who it was, but there was one person that I did ask and I never got an answer, but they ended up joining another league. So I'm like, oh, maybe they're just testing it out.
Yeah.
Like this person I think would be really cool to have in, and hopefully they'll enjoy the experience playing in it. To the point where like next year, maybe, like this is something they probably had never heard of.
Right.
But the fact that I saw this person sign up, then I was like, ooh, okay. So maybe there's hope that maybe there's hope. Maybe there's, like they didn't know how to say no.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to say yes. So they're going to test it out and see how it goes. And I'm like, okay, maybe next year. So that guy, there's a very specific person that I'm like, oh, dang it. That would have been hopefully next year.
Yeah, hopefully next year. Like you said, it's growing and growing and growing. And I haven't told you this, but before I became a quote unquote celebrity for these things, right? My thing was
you got heavy air quote it. Yeah, heavy air quote.
I am not just air. I mean, like throwing air quotes at you right now. Like celebrity is funny. But
it is so funny. But it is true. People sign up to play against you, Kacey.
They did. And my thing was, I was like, when you first created it, and then I saw that there were celebrities playing that I was a fan of, I was like, one day I want to be the celebrity. That was like a goal of mine. So when you told me that I could, asked me if I wanted to, I was like, yeah. So it was really awesome. So I think that you're giving a lot of people, the opportunity to get to know people and just kind of get their work out there too, because especially like you have this option on there, right, where people can play with just a random celebrity, right?
Yeah.
So why did you decide to do that as well?
Okay, so that's actually huge.
Okay.
It's very the initial reason is because it's super helpful to me because I'm selfish. No. It is anytime like I've done anything like this on the sign up side, like I'm the one signing up. There's definitely people that I want to pick, but there's also, I don't mind. Sometimes I just want to play. Like, I don't even care who I'm playing against, what it is. I just want to play. So just put me somewhere. From my perspective, running it makes it real easy for me to fill leagues. Somebody just wants to literally play in like 30 of these things. They don't feel like going through and clicking on 30 different names. In the past, you could sign up for any 10 3 times and boom, I put you in 30 leagues. There are literally people that like emailed me last year, like, hey, can you just put me in 30 leagues? Like, I don't want to sign up over and over. Yeah. And I'm like, sure. Of course. I've got your name. I've got your email because you did the same thing last year. So I saved that. And yeah, of course, I'll just place you in and, you'll get in. It makes it, not everybody has the same pool as Scott Fish, who you put his name up on there. He hasn't played in like 3 years in the Eliminator. That dude, his leagues, he filled 3 leagues, I think, in like 24 hours. I mean, come on. Some people just have that pool.
Yeah.
There's other people that, people do want to play against them, but it takes more promotion from me because they don't promote it themselves enough. Those that promote it themselves, like those people always fill. If you, like you, Kacey, you tweeted about yours, like, hey, come play against me. Peter Howard relentlessly tweeted, challenging people that he was going to be better than they were. And he filled 3 of them. So, I mean, like that kind of personal touch effort fills leagues. Not everybody has time to do that. Or like, that's just not everybody has the personality to kind of do that either. Like to say, hey, I'm challenging you. Like, come on, bring it. Like that's not in some people's personalities. So it helps me fill leagues. And the really cool benefit of it is, and this has been told to me by so many people now, is they sign up for somebody that they end up playing against somebody they never knew. But then they get this new point of view from somebody else. And they start following that person. They follow their work. They get a new point of view, which is really cool. I mean, there are literally people that have told me they want to be in somebody like, they want to be in a league with somebody they've never been in before. Like I can't really control that. But if there's somebody new, like that just joined the Eliminator as a celebrity, and this is, there's some people that do so many of these that they feel comfortable asking me because, well, when you do that many of them, I'm going to recognize your name. And they do. They say, like, I want to be in somebody, that I've never been in before. I'm like, okay, well, this person's joining the Eliminator this year. I'll drop you in their league. So signing up for any has benefits for me, has benefits for you signing up, has benefits for the celebrity because they don't have to push as hard to fill up their leags. Some people don't have to push at all because they're Scott Fish. Good for you, Scott.
Right.
But so it really does provide just a really cool aspect of getting in a league with some people that you didn't know. And at this point now, like if I reopen it at some point, it'll probably be with no celebrity. So you'll just play against 17 people or against 16 other people that just want to play and talk about the Fantasy Cares Eliminator. But even since I've closed it, like there have been enough people that have said, oh, I missed the signups. Like I was on vacation and they're already closed. Like I look forward to that every year. Some of these people, there's one guy that I think he played in like 20 leagues last year. And he completely missed the sign up, and he's in one now. Like he got in with one of the ones that got formed, but so I'll probably put something up in a little while after things calm down a little, and I'll run them again. Like if you just want to sign up and just play, like I'll start forming them, and then that'll be cool because you'll get a group of people that literally just want to play the Eliminator and talk about the Eliminator. You're not signing up for, if I can fill even one league with people that aren't signing up for a celebrity, and they're just signing up to play like in the league and talk about the league. Like, oh my God, that'd be cool. But I think there's enough people that just kind of want to jump in another one. I want to jump in another one.
Yeah.
I'm only playing in like 3 of them, and I just started playing.
Yeah, I'm in 2 right now, and I was like, I went back because I was like, I'll just come back, and then I was like, nah.
The first week was so crazy that like I don't sign up early because I know that I can't take on playing and running them. Like I can sign up at the end when things are starting to get a little bit more calm. So like I have 3 going on now. I usually play in like 10 to 20 of them. I have 2 more that I host. I won't say celebrity, but I host. I have 2 more of those coming. I have an auction one and a blind bid one. So I'll be up to 5, but still that won't be enough. Like I love these things. I love this league. I like playing in it as, that's like my reward. I love playing in these leagues. So I'll probably jump in a couple of them.
So you were talking about the different formats that, you were have new, like with the auction and all that stuff. Like how is it extra work for you to have to have these like special leagues?
So Kacey, what kind of start do I hate more than anything else in fantasy football? Do you know what kind of start I hate? What kind of start I think is the worst way to start a fantasy league?
Why don't I know this? I feel like
it's a draft. A draft is terrible. A draft is straight up terrible. It's the worst way to start a fantasy football league. It's horrible.
That makes sense.
It's random. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Woo.
The majority of these leagues started by a draft because it's real easy.
Yeah.
It's what everybody knows.
I will say you like hard things. You don't like things to be easy.
No, I much prefer. Give me something where I have a shot at any player. Give me fairness. Give me an auction. Give me blind bid. This year I will add a kaleidoscope one, which we can talk about in a few minutes. Exactly what that is, because that's even I haven't done that yet, so it'll be interesting. The first year that I did these, when I did it with like 30, and I can't remember if I did it the second year or not. They were all 3RR drafts. I dropped it because I got so tired of explaining to people what 3RR meant.
I remember that. Yeah.
It was so frustrating. And I'm like, 3RR is so much more fair. Like, it's better. And if you don't believe it, ask yourself, in a regular draft, what spot do you want? Oh, you want the 101. Okay. In a 3RR draft, where do you want? Ooh, now you have to pause and think, do I want the 112 or do I want the 101? Like, 3RR is better. I didn't want to explain it over and over and over, so I dropped it. I think I got to go back to 3RR next year because our buddy Scott is making SFB 3RR, and I'm like, as soon as I heard that he was doing that, I'm like, thank you, Scott. Thank you. I can take the eliminators back to 3RR. So originally they were all drafts. They were 3RR, and then they just went to all being regular drafts. I love auctions. I absolutely love an auction. It's so much fun. It is definitely more work on me. I can't remember if I started those. I think I did the auction 3 years ago. I added an auction option. And I charged a little bit more. Like, you paid a little bit more. It raised more. The prize pool didn't go up, but the donation to charity went up. Because the auction it's more work. Because, I have to run the auction, and then I have to transfer all the rosters over to the scoring site and stuff like that. And you have to set up the auction differently. You can't just hit duplicate league and all the settings are exactly the same. So I added auctions, which was awesome. I can't remember if I think it was Russ. It might've been Shane, Russ Fisher, Shane Manila. They did it at the same time, but I can't remember which one of them asked first. They wanted trading, obviously, they love trading during a start, and they wanted to add that. And I'm like, okay, we'll give it a shot. Like, we'll do that. So we have a couple of leagues that allow for trading. Again, at the end of the draft, I have to copy all the rosters over. At the beginning, I have to set the league up a little bit differently because it has to run with trades allowed and stuff like that. So they did ones with trading, which was awesome, because then you get a little bit of something for that. Then I started doing a league called Fog of War, where the start is done by blind bid, which is terrifying and awesome. You acquire players off waivers. So the blind bid, once I did it for Fog of War, I was like, oh my God, I want to run an eliminator like this. So in the blind bid eliminator, every night there will be 17 players up for waivers. Only 17. Well, every night for the first 5. And then I think it doubles to 34, and then it goes to 51. Till eventually everybody's up. But for the first 5 nights, there's only 17 players available. You have no idea what anybody else is going to bid on these players. You are literally submitting a blind bid waiver for everybody's got the same budget. You have no idea what to put in.
Wow.
It is very scary, because you can blow your entire budget on night 1 and have 5 players. Like, it's terrifying. But when that waiver email comes out, it's the most exciting waiver email like you see, because all of a sudden you're like, oh, who did I get? Oh, who did, if you just miss by a couple of bucks, you're like, oh, I should have just spent a little bit more money. Or maybe you really overpaid. So we have that one. Peter Gent, last year or the year, it might've been 2 years ago. Can't remember. I should probably write all these timelines down at one point, because these are questions I get that I should know by heart by now. Nonetheless, at some point, Peter Gent reached out and said, hey, like, what about doing one with some IDP players? And I'm like, Peter, if you want to run them, I am all for it. So we added some IDP. There's some IDP options, which is awesome. Peter pulled in, some celebrities to do IDP. And then he also now is a celebrity of one of them. And he runs it with his Shark Tank settings and stuff. And that's an auction one. So we've got that. Last year, Dwight reached out and said, hey, I kind of think I want to do one with just college players.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, if you want to run it, let's do it. So, and this year we have 2 that are college only players. It's awesome. And this year, Shane, Swagzilla on Twitter, reached out and said, hey, I did these rookie only leagues last year. I think it'd be really fun to do a rookie only eliminator. And we talked, because obviously, like, in the regular eliminator, we have 17 teams, 16 players on a team. There's not that many rookies, and there's no rookie defense. There's really not a lot of rookie kickers, so you can't really include defense or kickers. But we figured it out. We were like, okay, so there's probably 80 enough to get 80 rookies. So let's do 10 teams, 8 players per team, and you start 5 of them. So we added rookies this year. Linda, of course, you got to have punters. Let's have punters. So I was like, all right. And the reason I was able to do, like, add the rookies and add one for Linda with punters included. Punters, people.
Hunters.
Is because of the work that everybody else was doing on the back end for me. They were forming all of the regular leagues. I can't tell you how many leagues went duplicated, entered in the information, copied and pasted, copied and pasted, copied and pasted, copied and pasted. All the league, the franchise name and the email address, sent out the invites. The fact that he was able to do, I didn't do any of those that were regular. I did not do any of them this year. He, Russ, Matt, and Bob did that for every single league that was regular. I did all the irregular ones. Like, I was able to do all those because of everything they did. So the fact that they were able to pitch in, it's actually allowed me to then do these kinds of expansions and set up a new one with the rookies and figure out how to make it work in MFL. Set up one with punters and figure out a scoring system for punters and stuff like that. And what looks to be not overpowering, but make it so that it's worth drafting a punter. How do you do that? I don't know. I talked to Linda a little bit about what her scoring is a little bit. And then I started playing with numbers in MFL, but that's something I couldn't have done if I was literally just trying to do all these leagues that they were able to do for me. So the fact that they pitched in and helped me out is what really allowed it to expand even further this year. I hinted at what Kaleidoscope is.
Yeah, I was going to ask you because I was like, is there anything that you haven't brought to the table for these leagues that you want to? So yeah, please explain what the Kaleidoscope is all about.
So Kaleidoscope is a league that I'm starting this year. It's a 100-team league.
Wow.
And we will get, right now we're in the process of getting ADP from Safe League, Superflex, Tight End Premium Startups. Luckily, Kevin O'Brien, FF Engineer, not anymore FF Engineer, but Kevin O'Brien FF on Twitter now is he's a computer guy, so he's got the ADP automatically calculating on his website. When we get enough data, basically I will set up like a first round. Here's 12 players in the first round. Here's the 12 players in the second round, 12 players in the third round. You get to pick one player from every round. Whatever you want. Whatever you want. If you want the 107, go for it. If you want the guy that was drafted at the 211, he's yours. If you want to take the first player in each round, go right ahead. 100 people get to do this. You got to figure out how to do it in a way that's different than everybody else.
Whoa.
So I call it a kaleidoscope because everybody starts with the same toy. That's kind of my thinking. Everybody starts with this ADP sheet of, imagine like you see draft boards right behind you. That's what it's going to look like. Everybody's going to have this draft board of ADP, and you just go through and circle a name. So you twist the ADP to present the picture that you want. Oh, to me, it's a work of art. Your final roster is going to be a work of art. I also love kaleidoscopes. I think they're just really pretty. I like the way light. I'm fascinated by light and colors and stuff like that. So it really fits. But I want to do one for an eliminator too. Now that we have ADP for the eliminators, how can I not? So at some point that will be coming where I will get, me and 16 other people, and I'll say, all right, here's the first round. Here's the second round. Here's the third round. Here's the fourth round. Pick one player out of every one. You got to beat 16 other people that get to do the exact same thing, but go ahead and do it. To me, that's, I don't even know how that league's going to go. The 100-team league. I don't know how to approach it. Do I take Patrick Mahomes in the first round? I mean, it's a dynasty league. So I have a free shot at Patrick Mahomes. But if 75 people have him on their roster, is he of any value then? He goes from being the 101 and the most valuable person to if everybody else has him, he's of zero value then. It doesn't help you, anytime he scores 40 points, he's going to score 40 points for every other team. So it's not going to matter. So it's the strategy that'll go into differentiating your roster in that league is going to be intense. I mean, I opened up the league months ago and people have already been trading. We don't even have the ADP. People are literally just trading their draft picks around just to try and make their puzzle different. People have already started twisting their toy to figure out how to make their picture look a little bit different. I think I have 2 or 3 second round picks at this point. I might not have any 6th round pick and no 8th round pick, but like that's going to make the fact that if I have 3 from the second round, there's only going to be so many people that could get that combination. So that's kind of my next thing. This is an idea that I had in my head for like 2 years, and I wasn't going to, like, I wanted to start it last year. I didn't. Yeah. I was like, don't do it. You don't need to, but I waited another year and I couldn't get it out of my head. So I'm like, all right, this is at this point now, like when I can't get an idea out of my head, that's when I have to make a league for it, because I have to see how it plays out. That's the only way it gets out of my head. And I can't wait to see how this one works out. It's going to be nuts.
It sounds, again, insane.
Terrifying. It's terrifying.
Really,
I don't know where they come from, Casey. I don't know.
Okay, but hey,
I don't know.
Do you think that you're ever going to run out of ideas, or do you think things are always going to...
I would have already thought I would have run out of ideas. I don't know. I have no idea where the idea for Kaleidoscope came from. No, like, I mean, I remember when it hit me, like, I remember the idea hitting me of going, it'd be cool to just like pick a player from any round. I think I was probably listening to a DLF podcast where like they did something similar and they went back and they looked at like trying to make a team, like construct the perfect team. And then I thought, like, that would be fun. What would it be like to do a massive league where everybody has that? So it's not just a 12-team league, because in a 12-team league, I don't think it has the same impact to try and differentiate yourself. But in 100, like this is like like it's got some DFS strategies to it where you can't go chalk. You can't go chalk and win. But if you don't have some of the chalk players, can you win without, like, and I still can't even process the idea fully in my head of what to do. And like, that is what went through my head for 2 years. So now I just want to see what other people do with it. It tortured me for 2 years. So now I'm going to make sure I torture 99 other people with it at least, and see how they all react.
You are like an artist with these leagues, though. And I know, I know you brought up Scott and Ryan and a bunch of other guys and gals who have, Linda's got punters. You got all this stuff. When you go and sit down and write bylaws for a league that is this, like, out of control, this, like, whoa, scary, whoa, take a step back kind of thing. How do you make sure? I know you said you let other people read over them to, like, clarify things, make sure it reads well. But how do you make sure? Because I'm sure there's so much. How do you make sure you don't miss something or leave something out, or do you?
Oh, I've missed things. I've definitely missed. There have been times where I've like deleted a whole section, like on accident, and then still like sent, So my bylaw writing process is typically, I have this idea, so I start. I mean, that's where it starts, and I have a template. If you ever look at my bylaws, they kind of follow the same flow. In the way that I do them, I basically try to walk myself through the idea of the league starting all the way to like the league payout, which is usually the last thing of any of my bylaws. So I follow the same pattern because to me, it makes it real easy. So I start with the league makeup. After that, I'm like, okay, what's a team going to look like in this? The next question is, how are you going to get that team? So you have to kind of define the startup. After that, then you have to talk about like transactions and stuff that'll happen once the league has started. What are the transactions? So you have to define things like free agency, trades, waivers, stuff like that. And once there's the season, obviously there's important things in there like scoring. Then you have to talk. I mean, usually at the beginning, I think I usually try to address cost as well, because people have to pay to get in to start. Towards the end, you end up having like playoffs in there, and then you have payouts and stuff like that. So that's the way that I tend to try to really walk through writing bylaws, is follow myself through the process. And I think it makes it logical for the reader then too. I mean, my bylaws, the salary cap league that you are in, my salary cap leagues ones are super heavy because there's a lot of little tiny rules. I've never seen salary cap bylaws that are simple though. Like it's almost impossible to run a simple salary cap league and still have it be interesting, because you have to have these different little things in there that make it interesting, these different ways to acquire players and stuff like that. So salary cap league bylaws get intense. But so I follow that template. And I think when the reader then reads the bylaws, hopefully it makes kind of logical sense as they're thinking about if they want to join this league or not. They're getting right at the top. What is this league? What makes this league different? I do always try and define exactly what makes the league different. For Kaleidoscope, like it says right at the beginning, 100-team league, that alone, that's kind of different. And it describes then how the startup is going to happen and stuff like that. So I kind of want to tell a story of the league and how the league will go through a year in my bylaws. That's kind of how I write it, and I hope that's how people end up reading it. From what I hear, they end up being okay bylaws. Yeah. I've had people copy my template. Sometimes they ask permission, which is hilarious to me. I'm like, it's out there, it's public. Like, why? Yes, copy it. I don't care. I like the style these are written, and can I copy that? And like, yeah, why not? Like, of course you can. Sure. What do I care? So, I just try and make it, even though my bylaws tend to be very heavy, I try to make it so that everything in there is covered, but not to the point where, like, look, if you do read the bylaws, just read the bylaws. People, please read the bylaws. If you read them, a lot of your questions will be answered. I'll also obviously screenshot and show you right in the bylaws.
Ask you about
when you ask me a bylaws question, you will get a screenshot if it's in there. Maybe not maybe if I don't know you yet. If I know you, it's definitely coming, and it's going to get a highlight on it, maybe an arrow.
I love that. I love it when I see you drop that into like somewhere, you're in a chat and you drop it in, and I'm like, you should know better. Like,
take 2 minutes, people, and look it up. I swear it's there. Like, I'm not hiding it from you.
And it's always like super, like right there in your face, like information that you can get right away.
Read the message board, people. Read the bylaws.
And I know that league that I was in with you when you started it, and I was like, by
that one I specifically said, ask questions, people. Because
I did.
This is the only way to learn a salary cap league is to ask people that have been in salary cap leagues what the hell to do.
I honestly didn't even know like what questions
what to ask.
Even ask. I was like, I don't know. And then I'm like showing it to my wife who has no clue what she's looking at. I'm like, can you help me? But yeah, I mean, it was a great learning experience though, but again, you being instrumental in like getting people involved in Dynasty and stuff, you were instrumental in getting me involved in Dynasty. So, I mean, I was relatively new to Dynasty, jumping into the league that you had set up. But for people who have never played Dynasty before and want to take the leap from redraft or keeper leagues or, DFS or whatever they play, what kind of advice do you have for somebody that's going into it, brand new?
Think about what you want and try it. If you want, if you want to try something that's just a step above redraft, then just join. Don't join a league of mine. Don't go from redraft to an intense salary cap league with all kinds of restrictions on how much you can spend and how much it costs when you cut a player. All these little minute details. Don't go from 0 to 100. Like that's you'll get whiplash. Like there's a usual progression, and you can see this with anybody that you play in leagues with, Kacey. Yeah. Usually people start out, they go from redraft, they play in, a standard Dynasty league. Maybe it's super flex to start out with, which is good. That's what you should be playing. But they'll go to a 12-team Dynasty league. And that's fine. Like I still have some of those. They're still fun. I like to push the envelope a little bit more. And I think you probably know plenty of people that, even though they still appreciate their standard Dynasty leagues that they play in, they want a little, like, after a few years of that, or even a little bit of time less, they quickly develop this this thirst for more. Like, okay, this is better than redraft. Now it's a drug. I mean, it feels like a drug. You get, okay, this trading thing is fun. Well, this drafting thing is fun. Let's try an auction. Holy crap, this is way different. Let's do this. I wonder, what's this Debbie thing? Like, oh, there's some college players I'm interested in now, and I pay attention to that. Like you can follow it. It's so funny. So many people that are like, oh, I just joined my, I just joined my first dynasty league. And it's like, okay, like it's fun. And I actually go back on Fantasy Insanity. I had Kevin Cotillo on to talk about this because shortly after I went down this rabbit hole, Kevin did the same thing. And it was so funny to like watch him do it and talk to him as he's doing it. Like I'm like, I just did it a year ago. And I kind of like, I know how enthusiastic he is about this process of, oh my gosh, like discovering all these new things that you didn't know they existed before. Like once you get in on a couple of dynasty leagues, it happens every time. There's somebody in the chat saying, hey, I've got this other league that I'm forming. It's got this little bit of different rule sets. And so you're like, oh, okay, well, let's try that out a little bit. You start dipping your toe everywhere. And then all of a sudden there's a reason that so many people don't play in just one dynasty league. Like it's really hard to play in just one dynasty league. Once you get a little taste of it, it's fun. I mean, and for me, it's just entertainment. Like I love it. I love different leagues. I don't want to be in any two leagues that are exactly the same. I mean, even I'm in all 3 Capitalist Pigs leagues. They all offer something different. And I treat each team like I try to keep each team in a different stage, so that I can have a different experience in each league. Because if all 3 leagues were exactly the same and I did the exact same things in them, that wouldn't be fun to me. It's like, okay, I can just be in one of them and then I'll find 2 other leagues to replace them that are something different. So for me, it's about having, people ask me all the time, how many leagues are you in? And I'm like, I don't know. Because it's not about the number of leagues that I'm in. I learned that lesson. There were some leagues that I left after a little while because they weren't the right fit for me, but I wanted to be in leagues that I paid attention to. I didn't want to just be in a league because I wanted to be in a league. Like I want a league that it pulls me to pay attention to it, and it has to pull me to pay attention to it. And I don't want to. That's how I think of the managers in my leagues. Like, look, I don't want anybody staying in my leagues if you don't like it. Like when you left, Kacey, I could tell. Like I could tell you kind of wanted to leave, but you didn't want to tell me. Like I remember having a conversation with you, and I'm like, it's not going to bother me. Like if it's not,
I wasn't
for you,
on my
it's not for you.
anxiety meds yet, so I was just like on edge.
You were. I remember that conversation. Like I'm not some big scary dude who's going to get all mad at you and start yelling at you. I will yell at people, but not for leaving a league. Like you're a friend. Like I don't do something that you don't think is fun. Like you should only be doing this if you think it's fun and you're having fun with it.
I think that's a lesson a lot of people. I'm not the only one that's probably been like that, where you're like in a league and you like everybody that's in the league. It's just not for you.
Yeah,
and you don't
leagues that aren't fit.
Like, yeah, and I felt like I was like, I'm gonna keep doing this. It's just gonna be a thing, because I had left the first Dynasty League that I was in too, the one with all new people that had never played Dynasty before. I had left that one too, and I was like, I don't.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
That was that. I did get you. I got you in your first league. That's right.
Yeah.
That was. Oh, what were those? Those were with John Mosier and Dynasty Trade Calculator.
The Dynasty Origins.
Dynasty Origins.
Yeah. So that was the very first.
That's right.
Yeah, because I put it out there that I wanted to play
I
Dynasty, but I didn't want to play with a bunch of people. Yeah.
Bunch of sharks.
And so they put me, and then of course, now I'm in a Trade Addicts League, and one and my draft was like the worst draft ever. That was like a couple of years back, but I was still, and that's why I didn't want to be with sharks. So yeah, you were, I told you were instrumental.
I forgot. Like I forgot about that. And I remember talking to Mosier about that, because like we knew that there's lots of, he talked about it. And when he started talking about it, I'm like, yes, there are definitely people who want to play. And it's the same with DFS. Like DFS has like, hey, beginner competitions. Like you want to test it out, see what it's like before you're up against somebody that's submitting 150 lineups against you. Like that's not the right way to join and get an experience. That's not going to give you a positive experience. My first league was Capitalist Pigs. I got destroyed, but because I didn't care, but because I appreciate the strategy, it was an education by fire. There's a reason that I play the way that I play. And it is all dates back to that auction. But unless you have that kind of mentality about it, where like all I care about is the strategy of it, I got it handed to me in that league. It sucked. Like I got it handed to me in that first auction. It was rough, but I learned so much from it. And you know, unless you're, I knew going into it that was probably going to happen. I mean, I knew who I was playing against. They were the freaking people that I listened to talk about Dynasty. That Scott was generous enough to bring me in. I think he was just bringing in like, oh, this chump, he's just going to give me his money probably. And I'll just no, that definitely wasn't why Scott did it.
But, you know.
Definitely wasn't why. But I mean, if you are new to it and you jump into a league with a bunch of people that are experienced, understand that you are probably going to learn. You're going to learn your first and second year. Like you better learn fast or you're going to spend a few years learning. So there's really no way around it. And even in the Dynasty Origins, you probably started to learn some of the strategy, some of the ways to play Dynasty and stuff like that. But you probably still didn't ever. There's no way to match the level of when you switched from a Dynasty Origins to a Trade Addicts league. The only way to be ready for a league like that is to be in a league like that. Like I tell people about auctions all the time. Like, how do I get good auctions? I'm like, do auctions. Like I can look at an auction board and start to predict moves and figure out how dominoes are going to fall. I talk about that all the time. And people are like, I can't see it that way. Like, you know, and I'm like, I can see it that way because I've done hundreds of auctions probably at this point. Like it's a skill. You have to practice it. You can't just assume that you're going to know how to do it. You have to actually practice it. And the only way to do it is to do it. But you get all kinds of fun experience then.
Oh, you do. And then your team, like my current roster in Trade Addicts, looks like a great redraft team from 5 years ago, you know? So all the oldest guys in the world are but so you were talking about the entertainment factor. You are one of the co-hosts of Dynasty Game Night, which is
I think I'm still listed as one of them.
You're listed as, right? So you're like MIA, but you know, you're that guy that, you know, that comes back, the missing sister that's upstairs for 3 years on Boy Meets World and then comes back.
Morgan.
Oh,
Morgan.
So
big fan of Boy Meets World.
Boy Meets World. I mean, it's a jam.
I can't believe I remembered her name was Morgan.
I couldn't think of it. I'm glad that you thought of it. That I mean, but you're also this guy that loves entertainment and loves like these out there questions. You with Dynasty Game Night, how did that even come about? Because that's a crazy like thing as well, you know.
So me and Matt both love playing games. Matt's like a game. Matt will play any game. Like he and so will I. Like we love games. We love puzzles, things like that. It's fun to us. And we had talked. You know, we talked about like how a lot of podcasts have like a little game at the end, you know, 5 minute, like they play a game at the end for 5 minutes. Nathan Powell will say that he's the OG of it because of like Devi and the Vets and stuff like that. Whatever, Nathan. No, he's definitely one that we were talking about. Like, you know, the game at the end of the podcast that he does with Dan. That's fun. Dynasty Tradecast. So we kind of just hit on the idea like, maybe we should just like, there needs to be a podcast. Matt, actually, I think I told Matt, you need to do a podcast with just games. Yeah. Like just do a game, just do games. And I think then he said, well, okay, but you have to do it with me. And I'm like, okay, this will be fun. And it was like, it still is. I mean, I haven't hosted in forever and I do feel terrible about that. Like every time I'm on, because I basically only play now, and so does Matt. Like neither of us. You
guys found somebody to take over.
Like
so.
we were unfortunately we were kind of getting to the point where we had hit like a creative wall. We weren't coming up with any new games. Every game that we did, it kind of felt like a repeat. So it was getting a little stale for us to create the games, which was part of the fun. Like as much as that's the work of Dynasty Game Night, it's really fun to come up with a name game. Like those for me and Matt both, like they just come to you. Like you'll hear some random thing and it'll connect with a player's name. Both of our brains just kind of work that way, which you can tell like when you're listening and we're playing. That like it's how our brains, they're wired different, weird, whatever you want to call it. Like so we were able to come up with games pretty easily. And we could always do name games, but some of the other ones, like it got harder to do ones that were like ADP based and stuff like that. So we stopped doing shows as frequently. We would do like one a month. Russ then reached out and just said, like, hey, would you mind like if I hosted some of these? Because like I've got all these games that I think would be fun. And Matt and I were both like, yep,
yes,
for sure. Oh, and you're going to edit too? Definitely. So big ups to Russ. I mean, he definitely revitalized that show. And now he's, of course, brought Rocky on, who has hosted a few episodes now. We've had guest hosts in the past too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Nathan hosted, Katie hosted, Gabe hosted. And it's always fun when somebody like says they want to guest host because like they have games ready and it's going to be a different spin than we've even thought of. And that's, to me, that's really, really fun to see again, see it go to, I love that I was part of the start.
Yeah.
And I love that it's kind of taken on like different levels because different people come in and different ideas have come in and it's allowed it to grow. I know you think like that I watch a lot of TV and I do. But not only that, I listen to a lot of podcasts and listening to people talk about like the way Mike Schur runs things and stuff like that. Not that I run things like that because I'm not running any of this stuff, but the fact that like he talks about all the time, like letting other people be really good at something and grow like the shows that he does. Like I have huge respect for him and everything in his universe. I love all of his shows, everything about that. And he has this philosophy where he lets people shine. So like, who am I to like, I would never, if anybody wants to host, like, yes, come on and shine. Like, I'm not going to be the person that stands in the way because I'm just some dumb idiot. Like, I can listen to what somebody else that's super successful with what they've done, and this is their mentality with it. I can apply that to this tiny little, stupid little podcast that we do. Like, this is so much less important. So, of course, like, I love that people have come in and kind of been able to help it grow and help it shine. And I mean, that happened with the Eliminators, obviously, too, when people started asking if they could do stuff. Yes, like, let's do it. I am so happy that other people then get to put a spin on something, and I get to provide an avenue for them to put a spin on something and have fun with it. Like, it's so cool. It's an honor. It really is. And it's fun for me because it keeps it fresh. It keeps things new. And I don't want anything I do to ever get stale. So I'd rather other people come in and, it's fun for me.
And it's such a fun show. How does it feel? I mean, it is a fun show to listen to. It is fun. Just to listen to, like, how does it make you feel when you hear that people are playing along, while they're listening?
Kacey, you have no idea how much I love it when people tweet me some sort of answer that like they won't preface it or anything. Like they'll tweet a name game answer or something at me, and I'm like, oh, I know exactly what that's from. Like it's so cool. That is it's so cool. Look, we have so much fun doing that show. It's a show that I wish we'd do it more. But since we don't do it all that often, when I play on it, like I look forward to it. Like that day when I have DGN at night, like I'm looking forward to signing on. I always look forward to recording. I look forward to this one all day. There's something extra with like DGN. It's got it's fun. It is straight up fun. It's scary as hell to be on it too. Like,
oh my God,
it's straight up terrifying. Yes. It's real easy to play it in your car.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So easy to play in your car.
Oh my gosh, it's completely different when you're on the spot and you're like, all the names you're thinking of players from 1992 that don't matter, and you're like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it helps with being comfortable podcasting because it puts you in an uncomfortable situation. You are literally coming in and being put on the spot, trying to remember information that you like, people are going to hear and be like, how did they not remember this? I say all the time on the show, like, I can't remember. I am terrible at remembering stuff, but I don't try and even present that I should know it. I mean, now I can't remember the guy's name. I can remember a specific episode where I spent like 5 minutes trying to remember Trey Burton. That was it. I was trying to remember Trey Burton's name. Like, I'm like, he's the tight end for Chicago. He came over from Philadelphia. Like, I could remember everything but his name. But to me, I'm sure that people that were listening, they're probably like, this is hilarious.
Oh my gosh.
Like, they're screaming, it's Trey Burton, you idiot. And just listening to me, like, try to pull this name. And I can remember I never got it. Like, I never was able to pull that name. And now I can remember that I couldn't remember it. So it was like, I'm sure that when that happens, it ends up being fun for the people that are listening.
It really is.
It's really not all like I laugh at it now, but at the time when it's happening to you on the show, like, there's definitely like a little panic in your mind. You're like, oh my God, like what's going on? But I just have to remember that it's fun and everybody's laughing with you, not at you, which is what I choose to say. So then I laugh along with them.
I remember before I went on, I was talking to Russ, and Russ is like, it's fine if you don't, we're just having fun. If you don't know anything, it's fine. Just come on. And he's like, the only part that isn't great is when people like don't say anything because So
we have had people who've like, they just completely shell up and it's like, oh my, like I've heard these people on like other podcasts and they're verbal, they're interactive, but there is something about being asked questions in a competitive environment. Not that we're really competing, but I mean, we are competing. Like, you want to win. Everybody that comes on wants to win. There is something about it that just, some people like it's not often. Most people that come on they're fine. But then we've had a few where people have come on and they've like clammed up, and it's kind of weird because as a host, you're trying to like, you try and pull things out of them, but it's really weird. So you're all right. Russ is right. And you did fine when you came on.
Well, that was going through my head though. I was like, I'm going to clam up because I don't even know. I haven't been playing Dynasty that long. I didn't even know half the people you guys are talking about. I'm like, I don't know. And so, but yeah, it was real fun. So it is fun to also listen to that going on. Cause you're like, oh, look, these people, these celebrities are just like me.
Not celebrities.
Not celebrities.
Not a celebrity.
Not a celebrity. Well, you do a lot of other like guesting and then also like having your own shows and co-hosting shows and all of that jazz. So like with Dynasty Wall Street, that's been around for a while and it's a great concept. So why did you decide that was something you wanted to go down?
This was real easy. I think the trade calculator is wrong a lot.
Yeah. Okay.
No, I love the boys at DTC. I will be repping them in Canton when that comes. So,
there you go.
Like, I really enjoy them, but and Kevin is somebody that I talk value with a lot, like a lot. So I knew that I wanted to do the show with him talking about value. And Riley is somebody who approaches the game differently from us. I knew that Riley had a relationship with DTC already. He was a ranker for them, stuff like that. And he was somebody that I talked to a lot as well. But I got from him, it was never like a value discussion. Riley is more like Riley scouts players, stuff like that. He looks, that's how he approaches fantasy football. So I knew when I had the idea to do that show, which was different, like I wanted to do a show that was based on trade value, and that's it. Like that was, I think it was kind of niche at the time. I mean, there was obviously other trade shows, but we specifically were targeting like the Dynasty Trade Calculator. This is what the trade value shows. Do you agree or disagree? Like, because I disagree a lot. I hate it when people send me a trade calculator shot with a trade offer.
Right.
And of course, once I started doing a show on Dynasty Trade Calculator, I get more of those. And I'm like, people, do you understand the point of the show? The point of the show is I think the calculator's wrong a lot. And that's what we talk about. But that's, I mean, so I'm not saying that it's wrong to have a calculator. It's great to have it.
Yeah.
We specifically try to target players that we present that we disagree with the calculator on. I mean, that's exactly what we do. We try to look for a player in the calculator that we are higher on or lower than. And then we discuss with the other two because we want to find out, is it just our point of view that makes this player higher or lower? Where do the other two rank? And then, of course, it creates the discussion for the person that's listening. Yeah. They have to also then think about it. You think about it, compare it to draft picks. You compare this player to other players that are similar, and you figure out where you value this player. And ultimately, what it's supposed to do is make you want to go trade for this player or trade this player away. We end that's kind of what we do every segment on that show is, would you trade this player for the 106? It really makes you think about how you value a player. We each present a player. So then I come in blind. Riley brings a player, Kevin brings a player. I come in blind, not knowing the two players they're going to bring. So it's really great because you only have to prep one player. so we make sure that we know which positions we're doing. So, I'll take quarterback, Kevin, you take running back, Riley's got wide receiver. So it's really nice that we each bring, a specific player that the other two don't know about, because then you get like a legit reaction of an instant thought, which is usually how you feel when you get a trade offer in your mailbox. When you get one of those, you have an instant accept or decline. You might not do it right away, and you probably shouldn't. You should never smash accept or decline. I would say take 5 minutes, think about something. But like you do when you get that trade email. So it kind of mimics that, having that feeling of, oh, okay, where do I value Jonathan Taylor? Like, what would I give in addition to him to get to CMC? Would I even do that? Would I rather Jonathan Taylor above CMC? Like, it forces you to have that thought. And that's the thought. I mean, that's how I think about dynasty fantasy football, is I approach it from a value aspect. I want to make trades that benefit me in the long run and don't hurt me in the short term. So, I mean, that's where that show idea came from. I pitched it to Kevin and Riley, and they both were on board right away. We actually recorded a pilot before I even approached DTC with it. Because I wanted to test it out, make sure it was going to be something that I wanted to make sure it was what I thought it was going to be. And it was. And then we sent it to them, and they were on board instantly, which was awesome.
That is super cool. Wow. Yeah. So way to take initiative and do that. That's awesome. Yeah. I have a trade sitting in my inbox right now, and I plugged it into the calculator because I use it as a tool sometimes just to kind of see, and it's the exact same number on both sides. So I'm like,
perfect. Somebody sent you. That means somebody else looked at it before they sent that offer.
I'm gonna.
They were like, Kacey looks at the trade calculator when she gets an offer.
Yeah,
I'm gonna make sure that the numbers line up.
And I'm like, yeah, they line up for the trade calculator. They don't line up for me. So we'll see how I can counter it. But it is cool, and that's a great podcast idea. So I want to, since we've talked a lot about like fantasy stuff and all the cool stuff that we like as fantasy people, but what about real life when you're hanging out? What do you do in your free time?
Oh, I spend my
time. If you have free time.
I spend my time at theme parks.
Yeah, for sure.
I have 3 kids, so my free time is their time.
Right on.
Whatever event they have going on, that is my plans for the day. They're all pretty involved in things. We're back in the swing of things now. So we have soccer, we have swimming going. Swimming's in a little bit of a break right now, so that's kind of nice. But I mean, they play all kinds of sports, have all kinds of activities. So I play a lot of Fortnite with my son. He's big into that. Occasionally play it with Peter Howard. He's my late night duo partner since neither of us sleep. And we both kind of suck. No, just kidding. Peter's much better than I am. But that's the biggest thing is my kids and traveling. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you will see pictures of me. I'm sure it seems like I am all over the place, and that's because we are. I mean, we love going to theme parks. We are Cedar Fair members, so we can get into any Cedar Fair park across the country, and we go to Cedar Fair parks across the country. We have a lot of fun. Like it's It's something we all enjoy it. My kids were raised taking long trips in the van. The amount of times that we drove them from Cincinnati to Sarasota when they were babies. I mean, baby infants.
Wow.
Like my youngest, I think the first time we took her down, I think she was 4 weeks old. And my wife was feeling good enough, and we decided to go while she was feeling better, and I was out on paternity leave. I said, let's go to Florida.
There you go.
So they've been raised for long van rides, and I don't mind driving. We leave at night. We get somewhere in the morning. We go to a park. We have I love roller coasters. I mean, I absolutely love roller coasters, and my kids love roller coasters too. So it's been great. And my wife enjoys some roller coasters. We'll say. She's not as crazy as I am about some of them, but she enjoys it as well. So we have a good time.
So if you had to compare one of your leagues and using a roller coaster as,
oh man,
yeah, how would you, which league would you choose, and what roller coaster would represent that league?
Let's see here.
I'll give you I just came up with that question, so
no, that's fine. That's fine.
Quick.
I can do a couple of them. So Top Thrill Dragster is one at Cedar Point that goes up 420 feet and down. Like that's it. It goes straight up, a little over, and straight down. The whole ride's like 7 seconds. And you are, I should look up the speed. You're going very, very fast. If anybody knows what Top Thrill Dragster is, I'll compare that to Fog of War because like you have just this moment of sheer panic and excitement when that waiver wire thing hits. It's over in an instant. Like you have put your bids in, and when you get that waiver wire where for example, we just did the rookie one. I spent like $130 more on Kyle Pitts than anybody else. And people are like, oh, you overspent. And I'm like, no, I didn't, because I got the guy that I got. That's the guy I wanted. It's a 5-copy league. So you see the prices that every copy goes for in this one waiver thing. So it's super thrilling, kind of terrifying. And it's fast. it's this. There's not a lot of twists and turns in the draft. I could probably make Power Hungry be, I'm trying to think. I think I'll go Banshee from Kings Island. I would go with another. Yeah, I'll go Banshee, because Banshee's not just fast, but it also has like 7 inversions. So there's flips, there's loop-de-loops, there's corkscrews. Like there's a whole lot of different things that happen to you during this ride. And in Power Hungry, that's my superpower league, where you honestly don't know what's going to happen to you sometimes. Your opponent can throw a landmine at you, so you just get jerked in a different direction, and it can really come at you like you don't know when it's coming. And so you can be all over the place in that one. I'm trying to think if there's one that I can compare. Like my favorite roller coaster, I should say one of my favorites. It's called Fury down at Carowinds. It's just straight up awesome. I mean, it's a long roller coaster. It goes very fast, very high. I'm trying to think, but it's so smooth and just glides. I'm trying to think what that would be a good one for. It doesn't have like a lot of crazy twists and turns, but it's just fast. Let's see here. Which league of mine could that be like?
I'll describe this. He's really thinking. He's looking up.
I am like I want to get it right.
Yeah?
I'm gonna look at my leagues. I think I'll go. I think that's a good one for Audionautix, because Audionautix is best ball, so it doesn't have you don't have that constant fear of setting the lineup. But there's a lot of auctions throughout the year, so there's different times where you're going up and you're going down, and it's still an exciting league. So it's still fast enough and exciting enough that I think that one will go Audionautix. I could probably actually do this for a lot of them. I won't keep doing them, but I'll do those. I'll do those 3. I think those are 3, and I hit some of my favorite coasters at some of my favorite parks.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, obviously people know John Bosch, Eagles. theme parks, because that's just your thing.
I miss Disney. Like we haven't been to
Man.
Disney in years, and we were really like I even reached out to Ryan's wife. We
Hmm.
were hoping to go last year.
Yeah.
Obviously, it got canceled, and now even looking at it, like it looks super
Mm.
super busy and it's super expensive.
Yeah.
We're my oldest starts high school in the fall, so we
Wow.
wanted to get like one more trip in before she was in high school. We're still hoping we can get like one more trip in, one more Disney trip, because that used to be we loved that when they were little. It was so cool. I'm not even like I never went to Disney when I was a kid. Like
Mm-mm.
didn't I went to Kings Island a lot. Me and my brothers and sisters, we got season passes, so I grew up at Kings Island. But then when I had kids, just it's fun to watch them experience things.
That
So
is awesome. Yeah,
I
I
wouldn't go to all these theme parks if it wasn't for them. Although I have
yeah.
gone and ridden roller coasters by myself sometimes when I used to have to drive to work and I worked near enough to Kings Island, and I'm like, oh, I'll stop and ride a
Yeah.
couple of coasters on my way home.
No big deal.
I'm a little crazy like that, but I mean, like if I wouldn't have a pass if it wasn't for them. And
Yeah.
it's fun to take them around and watch them experience things.
That is cool. Yeah,
They
and
are
they'll
my
take it
free
with
time.
them. Yeah, I mean that's the best way to spend it. I remember going to theme parks. We went to Six Flags a lot as a kid, or as kids, and my dad would just, "You guys are tall enough to ride on a ride. Let's go."
My youngest got the orange band this year.
Oh
That means
yeah,
she can ride anything.
yeah.
And so one of the parks that we liked the most when we did our trip in 2019 was Canada's Wonderland. And of course, we can't go there right now. Like we've been waiting she couldn't ride like half the rides there, which is a shame because they have some awesome rides there. And all I want to do is go back like right now, but they're not even open. And even if they were, we're not, I don't want to spend
Right.
14 days quarantining just to go ride roller coasters, but hopefully next year, hopefully 2022, we can get up to Canada's Wonderland and get her on some of these coasters that she missed out on the last time we went.
Yes, and then you'll have to come back and tell everybody the stories about how awesome that was, because I'm guarantee you're gonna have a blast. Sounds like
For
you always
sure.
do.
Yeah. Even when it's super crowded, like so that ruins it for some people, but we go to them enough that we know that it's coming. Like
Yeah.
when we went to Cedar Point, their opening weekend this year, and it was crazy packed. I'm talking like 2 hours for food.
Jeez. Wow.
It was nuts, but we knew it going in. So we just, my kids are old enough now that they don't complain. They even they understand that, look, this weekend's a big weekend. We're here to have fun and ride a few rides that we'll come back on a Monday or a Tuesday at some point when we can ride a bunch of rides and nobody's in the park. We love those weekdays.
I bet. So before we go, because no offense, but it's
Yeah,
11:15
it's 2 hours here. We're 2
We're
hours on
getting,
this
but talking to
KCGs.
you, there's so much more that I have over here that I could ask you, and I'm gonna have to have you come back.
Go rapid fire.
Rapid fire,
Let's do
real
it.
quick.
Go
Let me see
rapid
what I
fire.
have here. Well, so we were gonna talk about screenshots.
Okay.
We already talked about screenshots.
The rules screenshots. Yeah.
Okay, so you were talking earlier about how you used to like a team and you're no longer. Is there any team that you are a fan of, or do you not have any allegiance anymore?
Oh, I have allegiance to all of my teams.
There we go.
I like all of my teams.
Okay.
No, people always give me grief. Like, no, you still care about the Bengals. I'm like, no, I really don't. I care about Joe Burrow because I have him on some teams. I care about Jamar Chase because I drafted him a couple times. I care about T. Higgins because I have him on some teams. I don't really care about Joe Mixon. I don't have him on any teams.
Well, there you go. There you go. And that was, man, you hit on a lot of them, which I'm very happy. You did most of the work for me. So one last question is about the Scott Fish Bowl. If you were to create a theme for the Scott Fish Bowl, what would your theme be?
Okay, so I think I have pitched this to Scott repeatedly. Actually, so when he puts it out, I've actually always said music, so I'm really happy he's doing music. But the one that I've always put on top of that, I want candy or cereal. Like I think there's I don't know how many divisions he's going to do. I think there's enough to cover. Like there's enough candy, and like think about the shirts. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be cool.
So that's where I frame it now. Is like I want to think about what would be cool on a shirt.
Yeah,
band shirts were going to be cool. Like I can't wait for those.
Yeah.
So we get music this year. I think it's going to be awesome next year when he does influential women. That'll be very, very cool. I think it was cool that he considered even doing it this
I
year.
know.
I understand why he didn't switch, because
Right.
he put so much work into this. Like the fact that he even considered switching at the point where he was at, like, I'm
Yeah.
like,
Blows your mind.
do what you want to do, Scott. Like I will support both decisions. But I can't imagine how much work he had already put into the music theme.
Yeah.
To have to go back. So he, and like he said, he wants to do it right. So that's coming next year, and that's going to be awesome. My hope is after that, I really want to see candy or cereal, because everybody has takes on candy and cereal as well. Like everybody has a favorite one. Everybody tells you which ones are trash. And I think there's so many options out there that I think you could probably cover a lot of divisions and make some really cool shirts.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I can't wait for those to come out this year too. So, okay, now you can go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and let you tell everybody where they can find your stuff and what you're all got going on.
You can just follow me on Twitter at John Bosch FF. That's where you will find everything. The shows that I do, Dynasty Game Night is on the DLF family of podcasts. Dynasty Wall Street, Dynasty Time Machine, which is one that I host with Bob Gilchrist. And occasionally I'll do one called Dynasty Panic Room, which is just me when I really want to go try and capitalize on Twitter overreactions.
Yeah.
All three of those you'll find on Dynasty Trade Calculator. I don't write anywhere except for one thing that I do a year, where I try and project my future, the 1 year from now, how I'm going to value players, which kind of measures into how I think the community will value players. That's the only thing that I really put in, like, that's not recorded.
Right.
That you can usually just find me tweeting about when I do it, and I just pin it for a while and put it out there. If anybody wants to see it, you can just tweet at me, and I'll send you the link, because it's not my pinned tweet anymore. That's definitely now the Fantasy Cares Eliminators.
Yes, it is. And we appreciate you putting those on, John. Like, we really do. The whole community. It's really awesome what you're doing.
Kacey, I can't even tell you the just the support that I've gotten from it. The people that sign up, the people that celebrity, the people that help me behind the scenes. I mean, it's just, I understand that, like, it is kind of partly mine. I will take some credit for it, but so I won't be like fake humble. Like I will take some credit for it, but I couldn't do it the way that it's done. Literally, I couldn't, without people out there being willing to give of their time to celebrity it, to sign up and play in it and support it and donate to play in it, and do so much work to help it run smooth. I mean, like, I love that the idea was mine. I love that other people have been able to help elevate it to where it is. It's humbling. It's crazy. We're going to raise an amount of money this year that is crazy compared to literally the first year I did it. I wanted to raise $1,000, and I don't know where it's at right now. It's in the 30s. I think it's like 32 or something, like $32,000 right now. That's
so great.
Nuts. It might reach 35 or something by the time it's done. Like that's
guys and gals that are
crazy.
Listening to this. Like, if you missed out, like, just keep your eyes open. If you want to get a group together with me, hit me up. If you need somebody for your group, hit me up. If John puts some more up, then I will go and get in. So appreciate it, John.
I want to play in some, so I'm going to get you in one, Kacey. We're going to draft against each other.
Yeah, buddy. I'm looking forward to it.
I'll make you play that kaleidoscope one.
Oh, dude, please let me. I have dibs. So
all right. You're in.
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it. I'm sure you guys go check out John's stuff and listen to his podcast, and we will see you again next week.